Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our wellness session this week. This week, we are going to talk about alcohol. So we're going to start with the health implications of alcohol. We're going to talk about the nutritional profile and also understanding alcohol units so that you can figure out how much your drink is. So as always, I do like to start off with some statistics. So just to say that 24% of adults in England and Scotland regularly drink over the low risk guidelines, and 27% of drinkers in Great Britain binge drink on their heaviest drinking days. So that's consuming over 8 units for men and 6 units for women. However, in 2017, 20% of the population actually reported not drinking at all, and overall consumption has fallen by around 16% since 2004. So I think this is actually coming from the younger generation, and they're exploring more things like fermented drinks such as kombucha. They're a little bit more about understanding where things come from and the impact that it has in their general overall health. So, alcohol and health then. Evidence suggests that after 10 to 20 years of regularly drinking more than 14 units a week, you become at an increased risk of developing some diseases. Approximately 20% of alcohol is actually absorbed through the stomach, and of the remaining 80%, that's absorbed in the intestines. Alcohol is also metabolized by the liver, where enzymes break down the alcohol. So you can kind of understand how it may actually cause some problems. So the diseases that it can cause some digestive problems. And again, logically, we ingest it through our mouth. So potentially we could have some throat ulcers, some stomach ulcers. Then also, it can increase the risk of heart disease and stroke. Liver disease, obviously it's metabolized in the liver and broken down with the enzymes there. So that, if you're making it work twice as hard because you're drinking so much, it's going to have an impact. It can affect the brain damage in terms of neurotransmitters and the messages that it sends to different parts of the body not being as effective, therefore damaging the nervous system. And interestingly, it can also increase the risk of some cancers, which is actually less well known. And basically, some research has found that 1 bottle of wine per week is associated with an increased absolute life risk of other diseases and cancers. So just let me see if I can move this. Yes, there we go. Mental health. So alcohol can also impact our mental health. And basically, the brain relies on a delicate balance of chemicals and processes. And this is partly down to neurotransmitters, which are the chemicals that help transmit signals from one nerve to the other within the brain. So there is evidence to say, that regular drinking can increase the risk of mental health. Alcohol is also a depressant, so it can really affect our thoughts, feelings, and our actions and mood. So, for example, the feeling that we can experience, or the relaxed feeling we can experience if we have a drink, this is due to the chemical changes that alcohol has caused in the brain, and that can make some people feel more confident if you're feeling a little bit nervous and anxious, because it suppresses the part of the brain that is associated with those inhibitions. That said, it is a short-lived experience, so you then may opt for another drink. And if you are really anxious or really depressed, it can be something that you can then result in becoming alcohol dependent to get that feeling back. Research has also found strong links between alcohol misuse and self-harming, to include suicide. And as logic would say, the effects of alcohol on your overall health will depend on how much you drink. And obviously, the less you drink, the lower the risks. There has also been some press out there, over many years that, red wine is good for you. So just let us look at this for a little minute. So it has been linked to heart health, and this is due to the red and purple grapes, and they contain a polyphenol, which is known as an antioxidant. And antioxidants are known to help reduce inflammation and blood clotting, which as a result can increase the good cholesterol, which helps prevent the buildup of cholesterol, which has an impact then on reducing the risk of heart disease and stroke, because there's less risk of a blood clotting and a blockage. However, one thing that I would say is that you do need to think of the other health implications that can come from drinking a lot of alcohol. And also, you don't need to have wine to get your red and purple grapes. So in the UK, alcohol misuse is the biggest risk factor for death, ill health and disability among 15 to 49-year-olds, and the 5th biggest risk factor across all ages, which I find quite surprising. But equally, if you think, there's many of us that would maybe just have a wee glass of wine at the end of the evening, etc., you can kind of semi-understand it. So what are the safe limits then? The government recommend a maximum of 14 units per week over a minimum of 3 days. So what is 14 units? So you can see here, kind of a standard 4.5 pint of cider, so only 280 millilitres would be 1 unit. That's not even a full pint. Again, for standard 13% wine, it's only 76 millilitres is 1 unit. 25 millilitres of a standard shot of whiskey is 1 unit. However, if you were to have, say, a gin, you don't just drink gin straight, you have it with a mixer, you've got to think of the calories and all of that goes along with it. So it can be quite hard to judge what 1 unit is within the drink that you're having. And it is also really important to note that it's recommended 14 units a week. However, this is considered low risk. The government will not say that there is a safe level of alcohol to have per week. So in terms of what does 14 units look like in terms of kind of an actual glass, or how many drinks you would have when you're out. So it would be 6 pints of 4% beer, 6 glasses of 13% wine, or 14 glasses of 40% whiskey. Many of us would, on a real night out where you potentially classed as binge drinking, may drink more than that. So you can see that it's very easy to go over it potentially in one night out if you're having a night out with friends, or if you're having a glass every single night of the week. So how do you know how many units? So we do often drink or one drink is more than 1 unit, very often, and actually it's not the same for similar kinds of drinks. So as you will know, there are lots of different kinds of wine, and they all have different percentages. As a general rule of thumb, European wines tend to be around 11 to 13%, whereas the New World wines from the likes of America, South Africa, Australia, etc., tend to be 14% or higher. Now, the percentage is all to do with alcohol by volume, or the ABV, that you will see in all drinks. So you will see the percentage, and this is the percentage of pure alcohol in an actual drink. And this is how you determine how many units are in one glass. But how do you actually do that? So 1 unit of alcohol is 10 millilitres or 8 grams of pure alcohol. And to work out how many units there are in a drink, then you take the strength, which is the ABV, you multiply it by the volume, and then you divide it by 1,000, and that is 1 unit. So if we take an example, we have a small glass of wine at 12%. We take the 12%, multiply it by 125, divide it by 1,000, and that gives us 1.5 units. So you can just see here, that units versus volume, in terms of the size of your glass, it can really affect how many units you may have in a night. So, it is kind of, if you are watching your units, you are concerned about health, it is a good idea to look at the percentage of wine and volume of wine that you're drinking per glass. Also, it's important to note that it takes 1 hour for the body to process 1 alcohol unit. So that can also contribute to why you may feel groggy the next day. If you have your 14 units in one night, and you're drinking all night long, go to bed really late, it could take 14 hours for that alcohol to actually be processed in the body and wear off, which obviously would bring you to the next day and making you feel really rough. Another important thing to note is that alcohol basically provides us with no other nutritional value. It is literally just empty calories. And when a person drinks alcohol, the body actually reacts to it as if it's a toxin. It channels all the energy into expelling it, which then means that other processes are interrupted. So this would include the production of glucose and the hormones needed to regulate it. And this is most noticeable in heavy drinkers, as over time, drinking too much alcohol decreases the effectiveness of insulin, which then can lead to high blood pressure. And this is what will increase the risk of diabetes related or alcohol diabetes related. Alcohol can also often be high in sugar. So an example is, a pint of cider could contain as many as 5 teaspoons of sugar. So it is really important to factor this into your daily added sugar intake and your total calorie intake for the day. And often, because alcohol is a liquid or it's a drink, you don't necessarily factor it into your total calorie intake, as you may forget to factor other drinks that contain sugar as well. So it is really important to factor this in. Another thing to note is that, because alcohol affects the blood sugar levels each time we consume it, even the occasional drinkers will be impacted by insulin and how are the insulin levels to monitor the blood sugar. So just to kind of put it into perspective, alcohol people would associate as being a treat or a social thing. So I've kind of not went for like healthy food, in comparison, but 2 gin and tonics is 1.8 units and 150 calories. Would you prefer that or a chocolate filled pancake, which actually has more nutritional value? Yes, it is high in sugar and fat, but we also get a little bit of carbohydrate. We could put some fruit in it to make it a little bit healthier, etc. Again, 2 rum and cokes is 2 units and 170 calories. Would we find that more of an indulgent treat than maybe a bag of chocolate buttons? Another stat for you then. So alcohol, or in the UK, alcoholic drinks account for 10% of 29 to 64-year-olds' daily intake of added sugar, which for me is quite surprising. But again, if you think, you may think that you don't drink much, or but if you are drinking, a couple of units, on a Friday and a Saturday night, or if you're having a drink most evenings in the week, you can see how it really can contribute to, your total added sugar for that day. Just thought I'd put this up here. Obviously, I'm a nutritionist and we go by the Eat Well guide, but it's important to note that alcohol actually doesn't factor into the Eat Well guide at all. So not even in the foods and drinks high in fat and sugars, which are actually sitting outside of the Eat Well guide, and the government recommend that you consume them sparingly. The government have no recommendations of alcohol being part of a healthy, balanced diet. So I just thought that was quite important to note. And again, just to kind of factor in the calories of alcohol units versus what you need, what else you could eat instead versus how long it would take you to burn off. So again, pint of 4% beer, 2.3 units, 182 calories, which would be roughly half a burger, dependent on the burger, and you would need to run for in and around 18 minutes, and that's just for one drink. So, would you be willing to run all of the drinks you had off on a night out? For wine, 13% wine, 2.3 units for a glass, 159 calories, half a burger, and you need to run for 16 minutes. And again, with alcopops and spirits, it's all putting it into perspective. Spirits here, again, whilst this is whiskey, which you may drink, straight, gin and tonic, or vodka, soda water, and lime, you've got to factor in the extra calories that would actually come with as well. Now, many people think that alcohol helps them to relax, which there's slightly some truth in this. It is a depressant, it does slow everything down, but as we discussed earlier in terms of the health implications, it does actually have a negative impact. It can affect the chemicals within the brain and how it functions and the message or signals that it gives to the neurotransmitters. Some people also feel that having a drink can make you feel more confident and less anxious, but again, as I said, it's short-lived. And it's because the brain is being, those parts or neurotransmitters in the brain are being suppressed. Drinking alcohol is not a good way to deal with stress. Very short-lived, as we've said, and it's not actually tackling the problem and potentially can make you feel worse the next day. It is far better if you need to relax to look at other ways in which you can. So, maybe going for a walk, talking to someone, prioritizing your work by making a list, to kind of de-stress and help you relax. Another myth is that alcohol helps you to sleep. And again, there may be some truth in this, in the fact that it can help you nod off. However, it actually really can disrupt your sleep pattern. It can also affect your mood and concentration and decision-making skills the next day. And this is, again, if you think logically, if you have your full 14 units per week in one night, you're drinking late to the night, you go to bed 1 hour for 1 unit of alcohol, you're feeling rough the next day, and also it's affecting our sleep in terms of we've got different stages of sleep. So there's 5 stages of sleep, and alcohol really would affect stage 4 and stage 5, which is more the restorative part of sleep, where it really allows our bodies to relax and sort of recuperate, so to speak. So yeah, no, not good for sleep. Alcohol is also a diuretic, and therefore this will mean that it will also disrupt sleep, because you may need to go to the toilet more frequently, meaning you may need to get up in the middle of the night if you've had a heavy night drinking. To maintain good sleep patterns, really, you need to aim for 7 to 9 hours each night. Limit your alcohol intake, particularly late at night. And, if you're struggling to sleep, instead of having that glass of wine, try and do something relaxing before bed, whether that be listening to music or reading a book. Try and get into a regular bedtime routine. And if you are restless, whenever you do go to bed, get up, go and sit in another room and do something that will help you relax a little bit more. So, ways to reduce alcohol, just to finish off with. I would recommend aiming for alcohol-free days. You can also opt for alcohol-free alternatives or low-alcohol options. I know there are a couple of beers out there that have started having reduced alcohol options. Eat a carbohydrate-rich food before you start drinking to help with, slow down the absorption, and perhaps drink water or soft drinks in between each drink. So that's this session finished. I hope that you found it useful. I just want to remind you that we now have a YouTube channel, so please subscribe. It's called We Are ESS, and then there's a wellness part to that. We have a little short clip every week on the topic that I talk about, and then we upload the webinars, as well as having leaflets attached to both the video clip and the webinar. Again, just to remind you of Nourished Life. So this is a Compass website that is really a health and wellbeing lifestyle website. So you'll find recipes, you can find a whole list of nutritionists and chefs and other wellbeing experts that you have access to. And finally, you also have access to the ESS nutritionist. Just email in essnutrition@compass-group.co.uk. So next week then we have the chocolate effect. So we will be going through how food can affect our mood, can chocolate be good for you, some nutrition facts and a little bit of advice on snacking. So I hope you find this session useful. Thank you.